Hey, creative souls, writers, word witches, thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy that you tuned in. Do you want to know what the cosmos has in store for us this week, and especially how it will impact your writing practice? Well, in this video, I will be talking about two aspects that are really important right now. One is the movement of Jupiter into Cancer, and the other is the Sag full moon on June 11th. For this video, I have consulted the wonderful astrologer Tanaz Chubb, and as always, I will put links to her channel and to her full moon in Sagittarius video in the description. Another very close call, lovely writers, getting this video up in time because I am still working on my Kickstarter campaign. And I think it has something like 18 days to go. I'm at 41% funded. If you would, please also check the description for the link to it. You can learn what it's all about. If you can't pledge, if you would share the link, I would be forever grateful because it's all about getting the word out, right? I've been doing a lot of public events, and almost every single time I come home from an event, I have one or two more people who have pledged. And I have a really exciting helper that I can't tell you about just yet because it's not quite finalized, but I can't wait to share who that is and how they're helping me, and it means the world to me. All right, so let's first start with Jupiter, which moved into Cancer on June 9th, and it will be there for 12 whole months. So we're really going to get to sink into this and what it all means. So Jupiter is about luck and abundance. It's also about expansion. And because it's in Cancer, Cancer is all about home and family and security. And it's about matters of the heart because Cancer is very heart-centered. It's considered the mother of the zodiac. Cancer is considered to be very nurturing, and you don't have to be a mother to be impacted by these energies with Jupiter in Cancer. So I always recommend that people look at their charts, and you can get a free one created online and see where Cancer is in your chart. For me, Cancer is my sun sign, and so I have a birthday this month, later in the month, and so I'm very excited about Jupiter moving into my sign for 12 months. Because I'm telling you, we Cancers have had some struggles for well over a decade. And I am excited to see what I and all of my fellow Cancers and all of us are going to experience from this, and especially as it relates to our writing lives. So during this time, here are things that might come up just in general, and then I will talk specifically about it as it relates to having a writing practice. So there might be issues around how we want to be mothered. And for some of us, that ship has sailed, right? For a variety of ways. Either our mothers are not alive, our mothers are not in our lives. We still have to think about how we want to be mothered. And we can be mothered in a number of different ways by a variety of people, by the earth. And this is the focus in my novel, Miranda's Garden. It's about how we can come back around to ourselves when we are in nature and working with the earth. Another issue that might come up around this is how we mother. So basically it's how we nurture, right? Again, we don't have to be actual mothers to be nurturers. We can all be nurturers, and this Jupiter in Cancer can really help us get down to the nitty-gritty in terms of how we do that. So I think it's a good idea now that we have just moved into this energy, and it's always more potent right in the beginning, and then we'll kind of level off and just kind of enjoy the ride for 12 months. But I think it's a good idea to think about how this energy can impact our writing practice. In other words, how does our writing practice nurture us, and how do we nurture it? Because it's a very symbiotic relationship. It will give back to us if we give to it. And that means we have to put our butts in the chair, we have to move our pencils across the paper, our fingers across the keyboard. As I've said in other videos, having a writing practice is not always just about getting words on the page. It's about living the writing life, having the mind of a writer. And so what does that mean? Well, it means as you're out doing your day, if something catches your eye, you jot it down in a notebook, you make a voice memo of it, and you keep these ideas, these sparks, these shimmers of things that have caught your attention, things you've heard and seen that potentially can be used in a story down the road, or it might inform something that you're working on right now. We can also work out writing problems when we're out walking, when we're in nature, when we're meditating, doing dishes, cleaning house, all of those things. If our writers' minds are always engaged, and I think they are, if you're called to write, you know what I'm talking about. Your writer's mind is always working. So have you been nurturing your writing practice, and what else can you do to nurture it even more? Has it slipped away a little bit because you've gotten busy with life, with other things? It can happen. If that has happened, now is a great time to bring it back or to reconnect with it in a deeper way. This time can also be about mother wounds. And while those can be difficult, they are great fodder for fiction. And this is a great time to think about what Carl Jung called the divine child within us, or the wounded child. We all have wounds, that's just part of life. And this is a really great time to maybe look back at some of those or check in with yourself about what some of those were at one point in your life. And this is not to dredge up the past and make you miserable. It's more about checking in to see how far you've come. And then, you probably know what I'm going to say, use your writing practice to work through them if something still lingers. Or use them as fuel for a story that you want to tell. Because any of us could create a story that thematically addresses mother wounds. And this could show up in a number of ways. It doesn't have to be a direct telling of a mother and a child. A mother wound can mean a number of things. And so I think we can get really creative right now to not only use this to kind of check in with ourselves and see where we are, and then also use that as a mirror for our writing practices. And Tanaz says that on a deeper level, this is about how we feel secure. So these next 12 months might be a time that you are feeling more secure about your writing. And that will be a welcome thing for any of us, regardless of how confident we are. Feeling secure about it is always a good thing. And feeling secure about it might just mean confidence level. It could also mean financial gain. So the sense of security is also about feeling safe and secure within our family environment, within our home, and within ourselves. And this is important for us writers because all of that, if it's out of whack, it will impact our writing. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a very distracting way. And I really think that part about feeling secure within ourselves is a very important part of having a writing life. Because if we don't feel safe and secure within ourselves, regardless of what's happening around us, because there can be absolute chaos around us, but if we feel safe and secure within ourselves, then we're golden. And if we don't have that, it's really pretty difficult to create. And I know there have been some people who have created in pretty dire circumstances, but they were able to go within and find that place in them, that safe, secure place in them that allowed them to create. And when we think about this feeling loved and nurtured and cared for, we can always get that from our writing. And I know a lot of people think of a writing practice as something that you do. I think the way that we manage our writing practice, the way we treat it, has a lot to do with who we are or how we see ourselves. And I always say that honoring your impulse to write is an act of self-love. And so putting a writing practice first is a sign of that. And I'm not saying putting a writing practice above everything else in life, especially if you have people in your life that depend on you. If you have a full-time 9-to-5 job or any job at all those things have to happen. But we can privilege our writing lives and our writing practices in our minds and in our hearts. And it's always there with us. And even if we can't be sitting down and writing, we can be working out problems. Tanaz also talks about the myth behind the sign of Cancer, which I didn't know, so I looked it up. It goes like this. So the crab is said to have been created by the goddess Hera to help the Hydra, which was a dangerous water serpent, during one of Hercules' 12 labors. So what were the 12 labors? These were a series of seemingly impossible tasks set by King Eurystheus as payment or punishment for a crime that Hercules had committed. And one of these challenges was to face the Hydra. And the Hydra was this horrible beast with many heads, and this encounter between the two happened at Lake Lerna. And the Hydra was so formidable that when Hercules chopped off one of its heads, it grew 2 back in its place. So the drama around all this is Hera, who is the queen of the gods, resented Hercules for a number of reasons, all of which I'm not sure. So she sent this giant crab to distract Hercules so that the Hydra could overcome him. So while Hercules is busy over here with the Hydra, the crab, this giant crab, comes up and bites Hercules on the heel. And this really pissed Hercules off because first it was painful, and he really could not believe the pluck and the cheek of this crab to come up and just pinch him like that. So he crushed the crab with his gargantuan foot, and then he went on to win over this battle with the Hydra. So this sounds like a sad story for the crab, right? Well, what happened next was Hera was so impressed by the bravery and loyalty of the crab, the way it stood up for other sea creatures, that Hera took the crab's broken parts and tossed them up to the sky to create the Cancer constellation so that he could live amongst the stars for infinity. And so it is said that this is where this idea of crabs being very loyal comes into play. And Tana says we don't typically think of Cancerians as being fiercely protective. But have you ever seen a Cancerian mom? Do not mess with us. We will protect those that we love to the end. So this Cancerian energy is about standing up for and protecting the things, the people, the beliefs that you love, all the things that you hold dear. And I would add or argue that part of that is your creativity. We do have to stand up for it, whether it's just being able to write and setting boundaries in our lives with other people, or whether it's dealing with an editor that wants to edit so much that your style has changed and it doesn't sound like your voice anymore. We have to fiercely protect those things and our ideas. And that means maybe not always sharing everything that we think about. I tend to get excited about new ideas, and so I share things with people, and then they take them. That's how I know I have good ideas. So I am still working on, but I've gotten much better at shutting my trap, keeping them inside me, putting them on paper so I know they're there, and then just letting people be surprised, because I think our ideas are precious. You know, a lot of people argue that, oh, ideas, they're just in the ethers, they're out there floating around. Okay, so even if that's true, if it lands on you, it's yours, and it's time to run with it. So claim it. Because I've had some amazing ideas, didn't act on them, and then I've seen them become big blockbuster hits, huge successes. So take my word for this. If you have an idea land on you, if it grows up from inside you, write it down and claim it. Otherwise, I do think then they go floating off into the ethers and other people can use them. If it comes to you, claim it, write it down, and then keep it to yourself, okay? And remember that I believe our creativity, our impulse to create, is our life force. And so if we don't honor that, it's our rich inner life that wants to come out and be in the world. And when we do that, other people benefit from it, and so do we. So with all this energy, and like I said, Jupiter is about luck and good fortune. It's also about expansiveness. It's about really growing things. And so don't be surprised if you kind of want to put your dukes up for a while to really defend what you believe in, what you believe is yours, what you believe is right. So as I said, it could be about maintaining boundaries around your writing time. It could be about staying strong about topics you want to write about. So I made a video a while back about writing about taboo subjects. And, you know, oftentimes, especially a writer's family, will try and squash it. We'll try and get them to we don't talk about that. And this is not to say that, this is a whole other thing, and I won't go down a rabbit hole, but there's this whole thing with people wanting to know if the stories that fiction writers tell are about them. That's a whole other thing that rubs me the wrong way. And so yes, we draw from life experience, but that doesn't mean we are telling our individual stories. It doesn't mean we are tattling on our family. Maybe we are, but that's our business. So even if we write about something because we write what we know, right? Even when we do that, people will assume that we are writing about them. So stand up for the things that you want to write about. Do not let people bulldoze you or scare you into not writing about the things that people don't want to hear about. That's where the real powerful stories are. So Jupiter in Cancer is a very beneficial energy. Who's not ready for 12 months of positivity? I am. There's been so much strife and so much ugliness, and the world has felt off kilter. So I'm ready for this. I cannot wait to see how this shows up in my life, in my writing life, and in the lives of the people that I love. So as Tanaz says, this is a time to really heal and nurture and expand those Cancerian traits that you have. So like I said before, check and see where Cancer is in your chart, see what house it's in, then see what that house is all about, and see how you can expand this nurturing, loving energy. You know, it could be around anything. It could be around money. It could be around your spirituality. And if you're a Cancer like me, it's just who you are. So it's about seeing how I think we can expand this further and maybe in more directions than we have been. And so again, because I'm here to talk about writing, think about how you can expand this Cancerian energy, this Cancerian energy, this nurturing, loving energy into your writing. Because when you channel that into your writing, you are also synchronistically channeling it into yourself. And who doesn't need more self-love? I don't think we can ever get enough of that. And I'm talking self-love, not narcissism, all right? I'm over narcissists, especially a certain one. So keep in mind this, what's almost become a mantra for me. Honoring your impulse to write is an act of self-love. and maybe approaching your writing differently. So if you've been writing consistently, maybe it's time to kind of reframe the way you think of yourself as a writer. Maybe it's a time to think about how you can go to your words with a bit more care. So think about what nurturing your writing practice means to you, and then see if you can do more of that. Okay, so now let's talk about the Sagittarius full moon, which happens today as I'm recording this on June 11th. So as Tanaz says, this is a very fiery full moon because first of all, it's in a fire sign, Sagittarius. Mars is also very strong right now. And Eris, E-R-I-S, which is an asteroid and considered to be Mars' sister, is also very strong right now. And Eris is all about discord and strife, but not in the way you might think. The purpose of Eris is to create turmoil. And you might be thinking, well, who wants turmoil? There's been enough of that. But this is a good kind of turmoil. This is a turmoil that upends the status quo, the way things have always been, that people don't question. The people have just fallen into this kind of ho-hum way of this is how we've always done it, even though it's not working. So do you have habits or practices or beliefs in your writing practice that you can disrupt right now? Like I said, maybe create a better pattern of thinking about yourself as a writer, about your writing, and maybe even realizing your writing dreams. If you feel turmoil in your life this week, one thing Tanaz suggests is to really ask yourself how you can get to a greater state of harmony around whatever might feel disrupted. So does your writing feel disrupted? Well, how can you create a better sense of harmony in your writing practice, in your writing life? How can you get back to it and settle down into it again? And always remember that the full moon is about releasing rather than bringing in. So think about habits, belief systems, the relationships you have, including the one with yourself and your writing life. So this is an interesting thing. It's about standing up and defending the people and beliefs that we hold dear, which is Jupiter and Cancer. And then it's about also experiencing this turmoil to disrupt the status quo and find some harmony. So even though on the surface these two might seem kind of at opposite ends, I think they can work very nicely together. So I think we're going to have to kind of be very intentional right now and really thinking about these things. And then also really be in our hearts and be feeling things and making that connection between mind and heart, to be very intentional about the lives we have and the lives that we want to have. And I will add this as an example. I took a trip on Monday. I went over to Bend, Oregon. I live in Portland. I went over to Bend. It was a one-day trip because I had to fit it in between my kitty's insulin injections. And it was eye-opening. Bend has been high on my list of places I want to live. And something about the vibe just felt off to me. And I spent probably 3 hours driving around with a realtor, looking at land, we looked at a house. She told me about kind of the lay of the land, so to speak, there in terms of real estate and, balanced against what I have right now to buy, which is nothing. So this was more like a planning trip. And I left there feeling very uncertain. It wasn't the vibe that I expected. And I've heard from other people that Bend is very divisive right now in terms of political beliefs. And I think that's everywhere that we're going to go these days, at least in the States. And I'm sure other places in the world. I'm thinking about our numbskull in the White House, though. He has ushered in this permission to be hateful. And my daughter told me a story about a woman who has lived in Bend all of her life. And she said in the past few years, she has gotten more racist comments thrown her way just walking down the street in Bend than she ever has. And so she's leaving. She's leaving the country. And, some people might say, well, that sounds extreme. Well, if we don't live that story, we don't know. And things wear on a person, and we all deserve peace and quiet and serenity and respect and honor. So I think this Jupiter in Cancer and with Eris being in the mix, this could really be a time when all of this standing up for what we believe and really disrupting things to create harmony could come into play. And the cool thing is, we writers, we can do that with our words. It's why some writers have been exiled from their countries. That's probably next, right? For us here in the US. So I think this is a really interesting time. And I know I probably say that in a lot of videos, and I always mean it. But this is all a process that we're all going through, and we're presented in these pockets of time with certain energies that I think we can kind of use to our advantage. And so I hope you will. I hope that you will use this time and this energy to stand up for what you believe in your writing life, for yourself as a writer, and then let the disruption happen so that you can have greater harmony. Also, you can get your words out into the world. So think about what you can shed, think about what you can change, even though it might feel disruptive and uncomfortable for a while, and know that this is happening for something better to come. All right, lovely writers, as always, I send you mad writing mojo. Happy writing.